This video assumes you've watched episode 2 of Moon Knight. I was going to do a whole review of both Moon Knight episodes, but I'm going to start experimenting a bit with video lengths. And this is the thing I really wanted to talk about most, so let's just make a quick little video talking about why I actually really like the seemingly divisive Mr. Knight scene from episode 2. Now, a disclaimer, I've never read the Moon Knight comics. If your issue with the Mr. Knight scene is that you were excited to see that character realized in this show and aren't getting what you wanted, I can't hold that against you. That's a very valid complaint and I can't speak to it. What I can argue is that strictly in the context of this show, playing this scene with the tone they choose to is beneficial, actually. The choice to make this a goofy comedic scene underscores some really solid character work that's being accomplished here. The scene where Steven becomes Mr. Knight and fights off the jackal who's hounding him and Layla is cringe. It's deliberately cringe. It's dorky. It's a moment of goofy, silly levity that feels out of place in a story where, so far, even the comedic beats have been at the expense of our protagonist's disorientation, sadness, or fear. Maybe the fact that this is the only scene in the show so far that's not at Steven's expense is subtly contributing to how out of step it feels for some viewers. But I think it needs to be exactly the way it is, because it's set up for an actually pretty tragic payoff coming at the end of the episode. See, Steven spent the entirety of both episodes terrified, stomped on, and dismissed, but every beat in this couple of minutes is about letting him self-actualize, let loose. In a reversal of the end of episode 1, he refuses Marc's help.
Give me control, Steven. You can't handle this.
I think I can.
He stands up for himself, choosing not to run away from a situation. Even the goofy little beat here with
Like a butterfly, stinging like a bee. My name's Steven with a V.
is a nice reminder of how Steven's been cast aside all throughout these 2 episodes to the point of people not even remembering his name. And successfully knocking the jackal back is the closest he gets to being happy on screen that we've seen.
Wagwan! I did it!
That's actually really efficiently conveyed character growth, and it wouldn't feel nearly as effective if the tone of the scene didn't match Steven's character. Even when he's being heroic, he's a complete goober, and his sense of achievement is emphasized because, for once, the show isn't undercutting that earnestness. Now, the tragic payoff being set up here is that this isn't where Steven ends the episode. He doesn't end it triumphantly self-actualizing, he ends it losing any sense of personhood to Marc as Marc takes over their body full-time. Something that happens immediately after Steven's moment of victory, at Marc's insistence. Now, Marc does acknowledge Steven's bravery in the situation and does try to comfort him once they switch places, but I feel like Marc being the one to suggest that Steven is just plain incapable just as he's having a moment of success is laying the groundwork for the relationship and shared growth as characters. I also think that Marc usurping control from Steven is the biggest, saddest L for a guy who's taken nothing but L's for the whole show. And coming after Steven's one W in a scene that plays to Steven's own personal sensibilities just makes that sense of loss all the worse. That scene was the biggest expression of Steven's character in the whole show. His inner bravery, his silliness, his wholesomeness, and his potential. And now, moments later, that guy's a prisoner in his own body. I love that kind of dramatic irony. It's just good writing. To the viewer paying attention, Steven is obviously the alter here, while Marc is the original personality. And that Steven being a prisoner in his own body doesn't take into account that the body isn't actually his. I think once that becomes explicit, this whole thing is going to get even sadder in retrospect. Steven asserts himself as his own person in the most Steven-y way possible, just in time for it to become clearer than ever that he's not actually his own person. For any of this to land the way it does, I think you need the Mr. Knight scene to be as goofy and earnest as Steven himself. Importantly, no one in the scene undercuts the situation, despite it playing comedically for the audience, and that's all part of putting us in Steven's headspace. This guy's a goof, and he knows it, but his conviction and his lack of irony are unshakable. You need the scene to play goofy, but without irony for it to work, because it's the universe of the show being on Steven's side for the first time. On a much shallower note, I also just like this scene because it adds to this vintage feeling the show has. Like, you don't get moments like this very often in today's mainstream stuff, where a story's tone briefly goes very silly, but none of the characters in the narrative are treating the situation with any less direness. It's a different breed of gag for the MCU, and I appreciate it. Anyway, yeah, this show's good, this scene's good. Like and subscribe.